Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Guitar Live. I'm Thomas Michaud, for those of you who don't know that. Today, I'm going to answer all of the guitar questions I can possibly answer, and I'll go as long as I need to get every question. To start with, I'm going to answer the pre-submitted questions. And in the future, if you didn't know that was available, you can always submit questions. Go on the Thomas Michaud website or Real Guitar Success and submit questions. Normally, I do a drawing also for members of my Real Guitar Success membership. However, because of where the dates fell, it's not completed yet, so I'll need to wait a week and tally that up and then pick a winner. But normally we give away a $50 Amazon gift card for a drawing, whoever gets picked out of a series of people who have completed the 20 practice sessions for the month. So with that said, let's get started with questions. Welcome, everyone. And if you're watching this pre-recorded, welcome. You're welcome to ask questions in the comments below the YouTube video. Oh, by the way, if you're going to ask a question in the chat, which would be wonderful anytime, add a question, just start with the word question, because what I'm doing is looking down the comments, and I can't tell a comment from a question, and I don't really have time to read every single thing. So I really appreciate it. That said, and I'll say that again later for those who come on late. Let's start with a question and get going. I've been working on speed using a chromatic scale and metronome. I seem to have reached a barrier so that I don't seem to be getting any faster. Should I keep on trying, since maybe it's just a plateau, or maybe I've reached my limit and I should just stop? How fast should I be aiming for anyway? So this applies to any exercises and scales. I recommend using a metronome, starting at a very slow pace, getting the slow enough to where you can get everything just right, and then picking it up little by little. I don't know about ever reaching a limit that you can't surpass. However, a lot of it has to do with your goals and what you're playing. There may be a fast enough for what you want to do that is, as far as you're concerned, could be a self-imposed limit. I mean, it does take time. So if you spend a lot of concentrated time on trying to get faster and faster, that might take away time from something else that's important to you. I like the metronome in part to keep me slow enough, not for speed, but to keep me slow enough to get it right. Because I'll tend to keep going faster and faster without something to kind of give me a little guidance or a little reminder, so to speak. I'm trying to keep in time with the metronome. And by the way, I don't mean to practice always with a metronome. That's part of your practice. You want to also develop your own internal sense of rhythm. There is no right speed to aim for. It has to do with, of course, the exercise and what you're working on, but also your goals. I mean, for one person, that G scale could be just fast enough for what they're doing, especially if I'm not looking to play fast melodic leads or anything, just practice and be able to train my ear for the scale. Now, for somebody who's playing heavy metal, you're going to want to play... That would be moderate tempo, probably. I'm not a heavy metal person, but I've watched guitarists, you know, and if that's the style you're playing, you kind of got to be there, right? So there really is no right speed. And I think it's more important to focus on what's the right speed for you based on where you're at. So fast enough to do what you want to do, and you're going slow enough to get it right, relaxed, and part of your regular routine. Why should I learn riffs or licks that someone else created that I'm not going to be using in my own playing because they don't fit with my style of playing? And the second part of the question, wouldn't it be better to just make up my own riffs? So the first part, you shouldn't be playing licks or riffs that have nothing to do with your own playing. And if you're talking about the practice sessions, if it's a blues riff and you're not interested in blues at all, feel free to skip it. That's part of the deal with practice sessions and Real Guitar Success. Is I ask you to go through it for 10 minutes because you don't know if it's something that you're going to appeal to you or not. And 10 minutes of practicing will always benefit you in some way or fashion, even if it's not stylistically what you're aiming for. But all said and done, I wouldn't spend every day trying to perfect that blues lick if you're not interested in anything to do with blues. That said, by the way, blues is a foundation for lots of music, including rock, jazz, country. A lot of those blues licks with a little different phrasing or something could be many different styles of music. So when I pick blues licks, that's a fairly universal type of lick. There are other licks that are more specific. Something really fast like that with fast notes is probably not going to appeal to somebody who's playing a slower style of melodic music. And again, you never have to, even to complete the practice sessions, you never have to learn it, so to speak. I just ask you to spend 10 minutes on it. 10 minutes of practice will benefit you no matter what style. And after that, you decide if it's something that you want to spend more time on to perfect or to make it a part of your repertoire. Making up your own licks is highly recommended. But what has worked best for me and many, not just my students, but fellow musicians, is to find licks in a style of music that I like, learn them, then integrate them into my own playing, little by little, manipulate them to have more of my style, and then from that base, start creating my own licks, rather than just out of the blue coming up with something that I don't know if it's actually going to sound good in what I want to play. So it's a tried and true method of learning to improvise, is learn from others, integrate it into your own playing, then start stretching it, expanding it, change the rhythm a little bit, add some notes till it, almost doesn't sound like the original, and then use that whole learning little by little to move into creating your own riffs or licks based on what you already know. Now you have technique. It's really hard to create a riff that you hear. Might sound great in your head, but if your fingers can't get there, you're dead in the water. So learning and practicing other people's riffs is one method of getting to that place where your fingers can move to what you hear in your head. And that whole issue of ear training, being able to interpret what you hear in your head into your fingers, is learned by listening to something else and copying it and trying to play it. So there's multiple benefits to doing that. You need to know when to little by little switch into doing your own thing, and that's something that's different for every individual person. Usually when people jam over a backing track, they use an electric guitar. Are there any tips or tricks suggested for someone who jams with an acoustic or a nylon string guitar? For example, should I stick to slow acoustic ballad tracks to get the best sound, or forget about jamming with backing tracks altogether? So this is not a nylon string, so I can't really demonstrate, but first of all, you can jam with backing tracks with a nylon string because I do it all the time. My main instrument is a nylon string guitar. Matter of fact, I'll pull it out. Okay. My nylon. Now, this looks like a classical guitar, but it's actually a flamenco guitar. And it's, I play a style of music where this makes sense. It's a style of music that's you can improvise on. Whereas if you were playing classical music, that would make sense. I use a pick when I'm improvising, but I can use my fingers also, and depending on the effect I want. No, I don't stick to slow music. Often my music is pretty up-tempo, and there's no reason it has to be slow or fast. It doesn't play into what I'm improvising. Sit. Told my guitar to sit. But the thing is, you need to think stylistically. Listen to music that uses a nylon string and improvises, and imitate phrases and licks, manipulate those phrases and licks, start making up your own in that style, the style that you want to create. Or make up your own style if you want. You can do that too. But it has to do with the sound of the guitar that makes the style or makes the music sound like what you want. It's not whether it's a steel string, acoustic, or electric. And yes, there are things you do on electric that I wouldn't do on the nylon string. I probably wouldn't bend. I never bend notes on nylon. Let's say it that way. I don't really bend notes. I do vibrato, though. I like the vibrato, so it's a slight bend. It really carries the note a little bit because the nylon tends to die away. So I take those things into account. There's not a right or wrong. What works on the nylon is taken into account. It's not amplified. It's not going to sustain. It's not distorted. And I pretty much got that by listening to music that uses a nylon string, flamenco, Gypsy Kings, Ottmar Lieber, Jesse Cook, those kinds of things. There may be other styles that I've heard people play melodies on nylon string, and certainly jazz on nylon string, so it's not just limited to that style. That's just not my world. What do I do if my jam buddy is playing a song on his in the key of A minor, and he puts a capo on the 3rd fret? Let me get the guitar again so we can show what this looks like. So he puts a capo right here, 1, 2, 3, and I'm improvising, soloing. What do? Do I put the capo on the 3rd fret and continue to solo, or do I change a key on the fly? That's a great question. I like that. You can do either one. If you are improvising in a scale and you put a capo on the 3rd fret, now you're basically moving that scale or whatever you're doing up that many frets. So you want to be the same distance away from that capo that you were from the nut. So for instance, if I'm playing a scale, let's say a G scale. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I put the capo on the 3rd fret, 1, 2, 3. Now the G scale is going to be right here. It's not G anymore. It's 1, 2, 3. That's half steps. 3 half steps is 1.5 steps. That's G, A. Another half step would be A sharp. So that's the other option. You can think to yourself, he put everything up 3 half steps, 1.5 steps, the same as 3 half steps. That changed the key of A minor to B, to another, from B to C is a half step, C. Now I'm in the key of C. So I'm going to play a C scale or notes from the C scale or something from, let's see, a C minor scale, right? A minor, C minor scale. So I was playing here. That's a C minor pentatonic. Now I'm going to move up 1, 2, 3. That was a weird scale, but you got the idea. Move up 3 frets to scale. And if I was playing scales all over the neck, everything would be up 3 frets, 3 half steps. You don't even have to think of what key it's in. Physical works in terms of just thinking physical distance. I have a feeling a lot of musicians who don't really read music don't really worry about necessarily what key, but they visualize in their head where everything is 3 half steps up on the guitar and just do everything like that. For me, it helps to communicate with other musicians. Hey, I'm in A minor. Oh, okay. You want to go to B minor? That's going to be better for the vocalist. Okay, well, basically think I'll move everything up a whole step, A to B. All of that takes practice. Even with the capo, because you still have to move everything up. The capo doesn't solve everything. You don't play everything in the same place. When you're playing, put a capo on, you play chords, the chords have to move up. But of course, it's a chord form, so it's a little easier. If I was playing a G chord here and I put a capo here, I'll play the G chord here. Wait, capo there. That's the capo. So, it's the same thing when you're playing lead, but it's more complicated because you're playing individual notes. Tony's asking if it's possible on your next live session to deliver a 10-minute practice session for people to use daily to help improve playing skills. So I have on my website attempts at that, and I've never been happy because everybody is different. And I'm not talking there's 3 groups. There's hundreds of different practice sessions depending on your level, your weaknesses and strengths, where you are in the Real Guitar Success course. The best way I can say that is start with a warm up and base the warm up on something that you can do that allows you to go slow enough to pay attention to getting the notes right, not just the most challenging warm up. But it's different at different stages. You might use 4 fingers up in the neck, whereas when you're just starting out, you might use only 3 fingers, just the very beginning. There's a whole series on Real Guitar Success of warm-ups, and you can pick one and use that for a while and then use a different one. And I also include them in the practice sessions every month. So what I intended students to do is just pick one and do it for a month or so, and then pick another one that they save that they like and use that one for a month or two. Then spend 10 minutes on the practice session for the day. Now it's going to be different every day, so you're going to get something new and kind of something that either challenge you or open up on other possibilities. And then play something you already know how to play or something that's easy, so you can kind of just spend a few minutes doing something to feel good. That solidifies you can still play guitar even though you just maybe fumbled through the practice session. If you're a brand new beginner, pick something out of the beginner's journey. The practice sessions are probably more advanced for someone who has not completed the material in the beginner's journey, which is a beginning step-by-step course. That said, I might give it another shot of making maybe several practice sessions as examples. 10-minute sessions as examples, and I'll post them in Real Guitar Success. Again, I've never felt like whatever I've done is matched enough people to be something they could just take and use, but maybe just as an inspiration to work off of, in addition to that instruction that I just gave. In fingerstyle playing, in 4/4 time, is one pattern equal to a single beat. So I'll start there. He went on to say, is one pattern, the whole thing meant to be one beat? No, usually no. And there's no one pattern is, so if you have 4 beats, a pattern could take up the entire 4 beats. It could take up 2 beats, and those are the most common. It's very seldom a pattern takes up 1 beat. So here's 4/4 time with a simple picking strum. This is common. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That was one full pattern for 4 beats. 1 and. Each 2 notes was a half a beat. So 1 and was 2 notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now that I think of it, probably if I were to say generalizing, most patterns are one full measure for 4 beats, all 4 beats, in 4/4 time. In 3/4 time, one full measure, 3 beats. So here's another one. This one is 2 patterns to a measure. 1 and 2 and, oh, no, okay. 1, 2 and 3 and 4, and that would be 2 patterns to a measure. Now here's one that will be one full pattern for each beat. 1, 2, 3. I never play that way. You could do it, but again, most patterns take up a whole measure, or second would be a half a measure. When should I use, this is a good one, when should I use the daily practice sessions in addition to the beginner's journey? Some of the things seem too advanced for a total newbie like me. How should a beginner on the journey structure effective practice? So I've alluded to this a little bit already. For the heart of the Real Guitar Success program is the daily practice sessions. But I found early on that they are very frustrating for new people, because even though they can try to do the different things, they don't have a foundation to play the different chords and the different techniques. So I developed over years, actually, this has been going on for over 10 years now, this whole beginner's journey, which is a step-by-step method to get the foundation. And what I found in the early stages, step-by-step works best, but you need this complement of immersion. I got that from my studies in language, immersion of doing different things and having things thrown at you and trying them to actually refine and be able to actually play in a way that sounds good. So the beginner's journey takes that step-by-step path. One step builds on another, little steps, so you can reduce the frustration and see progress. Then when you're done the beginner's journey, you're in a better place to do the daily practice sessions. And even if you don't get them perfectly, you have a chance at it. You feel like it's within the realm. That said, there's no rule that you cannot look at the practice sessions. I don't bar beginners, but for the most part, it is better for most people to complete the beginner's journey, then start the daily practice sessions. And you can always, there's many other courses you can add to that. The idea is the beginner's journey, practice the lesson that you're working on, the progressive. When you get 80% of that lesson, go to the next one, 80%, not 100%, you never get there. You'll be stuck. But don't just brush over it, kind of get, and go to the next one. You're going to get stuck too. They're progressive. So it's like if you can't do basic addition, you're going to have a heck of a time when you get to, algebra, because it relies on having at least some skills with addition. You don't have to be a genius, but you have to have some basic skills there. Same with the guitar. You need to play a basic G chord if you're going to play a progression with a lick that uses a G chord. And when you're done the beginner's journey, then change your practice up to include the practice sessions each day and maybe another course. For most people, that's the bar chord course, because that's another progressive step-by-step course for bar chords. But then you're combining it with that immersion in the daily practice session. So I hope that helps other people as well, because I have to admit, it's not that clearly explained on the website. I'm in a bit of a dilemma in that I don't want to give a big theoretical lesson in the beginning. If somebody's in the beginning stages, I want them to start in the beginner's journey, so I don't explain about all the other stuff. But on the other hand, almost everybody's eventually going to get to what's all that other stuff. So I'm not sure how to get that in there without boring people or overwhelming them on either side. What's the best way to understand what key your voice is and where to place the capo based on your singing key? So singing is not my strength. I do play and sing, but I'm not the best person to ask that. It would be somebody who teaches singing and has experience with that. That said, the way I do it is I just keep experimenting. I just play a song and see if the notes are too high to my voice. Then I think what key would work. And when I put a capo on, what I'm doing is going down. So let's say it's in the key of C, and it's a little too high for my voice. I want to go down to the key of B, maybe A. B's hard to play on guitar. So I'll go down B, and next key is A. So now I'll play that song in the key of A. I'll change the chords, actually. Once I've done that, I might say, oh, it's a little low now. Then I'll put the capo on and raise it up a half step and see if that gets it just right. That's not the only way to do it. You could just throw a capo on, play the same chords, and see where it works. Maybe sometime I'll have one of my singer teacher friends on the show and answer singing questions. That would be I'd like that. I have some questions. When you play a new song melody that you are not familiar with, do you hear it? How do you learn the song melody rhythm versus merely playing notes and chords? Now, Dan, if you're on the show, I'd like you to maybe give me a little more background on what you're asking. It'd be helpful if you applied it to a practical what you're trying to do, and maybe what you're finding is frustrating you. It's easy for me to understand what you're actually asking. But that said, let me give my best shot. I'm going to assume you mean by just merely playing notes and chords that you're talking about reading the music, seeing the notes and chords and reading them as opposed to just hearing a song and try to play it by ear. And in one sense, you are right in the beginning, Dan, that if I'm answering that question, yes, I hear a song, and in my mind, I am matching it to what I know. So I've spent years playing progressions, common progressions, common chords, and different songs with putting them into songs and rhythms. So I have a repertoire in my mind of when I hear something, does that seem like something I've done before? Now, if I hear a song and I hear a common progression, I'm matching it and I say, yeah, it fits that progression, I'll try it out. If I'm wrong, I'll try something different. A lot of songs are common progressions. So that's often the first place to go. What I usually do first is try and get the key. So I'll hear a song and I'll start going up and down on the bass notes to find the key that it's in. And then once I find the key, I'll try the progression in that key. That's not quite right. I'll try a different progression. And then I'll hear, if I get the progression, I'll hear some parts that are different, and I'll just start listening to that. When you're talking about melody, I'll do the same thing. I'll find the key that it's in, and then I'll start trying to find a scale. If it's a major or minor, basically, I'll play a major scale and a minor scale, and check out which one fits better. I can usually tell very quickly if it's major or minor, but in the beginning, it took me a while. I'd have to play the scales back and forth. And then I'll go on to listen to a little part of it, play it within that scale to find the notes, play a little more, and so on until I get enough of the song. I hope that helps. If not, I'll be looking for any additional information there. First, this is Dave asked me to read this quote, which he found inspiring and consistent with some of the things I've taught in the past. The quote is by Octavia Butler, an author. First, forget inspiration. Habit is more dependable. Habit will sustain you whether you're inspired or not. Habit is persistence in practice. Okay, next question. I began my guitar journey 2 months ago, and I've been working at various finger exercises, plus warming my hands with warm water. That sounds good. At 78 years old, do I need to do the same thing or be more patient? At 78 years old, do I just need to keep doing the same thing and be more patient with my fingers? Or do you have other advice? So I'm assuming, Paul, that you're saying that your fingers are still having a hard time moving in spite of doing the finger exercises and warming with water. The short answer is probably keep needing to do it, but you might need to change up your warm-up exercises. For that, I would... if you're in my Real Guitar Success membership, pick a warm-up exercise that you can do fairly easy and set a metronome and try to do it to a metronome once in a while, not all the time. And try to pick up your speed a little bit, but always slow enough so you can get it right. Pay attention to where you put your fingers. Try to stay relaxed. You might benefit from some stretching exercises, though you have to go slow and really pay attention to yourself because you can hurt yourself too. This is my favorite stretching exercise. And I have on the Real Guitar Success website, I'll add notes here, a whole video on stretching exercises, but all come with a caution. This works well for me, but if you're just starting out, you really have to go slow and feel the muscles and not overtax them and do a little at a time, just a few, usually a few, and then rest and come back at it again later, as opposed to a long session of stretching. Stretching really helps me. I need it. And I suspect it helps everybody if done in the right way. I do know people who have gotten too excited and hurt themselves too, or not permanently, but made it so they couldn't play for a while. You don't want to do that. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. Good question. So I'm going to start at the top of my chat now and start finding the questions that are being live questions. Let's see what we got. So I'm looking for the word question. If you weren't here earlier, I'm asking that if you have a question, start with in big letters, question. I'm reading comments, and I can't tell a comment from a question unless I see that. And I don't have time to read the whole thing. Going down, so here's a question. For someone who is learning ear training as a beginner, especially intervals, should I only focus on practicing intervals in C major key, or should I practice other scales? Well, in general, you do want to, intervals are intervals. They're not one scale. So if I say I'm practicing a major second, that's a major second no matter what scale it's in. So it sounds like you're talking about practicing scales, and C major scale is a good place to start. For a general, it's good because it helps you with all kinds of music theory stuff. But depending on the style of music you want to play, if you're a rocker, you definitely want to get into pentatonic scales pretty quick. One of the things I would recommend in general is practicing ear training, by copy ear training. Listen to short phrases of music and imitate them. Intervals are good and a good addition to that, but I think the best practice is listening to short phrases and then playing that on your guitar. Singers probably would sing it too. That's not my focus, so I play it on the guitar, and that helps me connect what I hear in my head with the notes on the guitar. So I have a whole series of play-along tracks. They're by copy play-along tracks. So I'll play, listen, play it, and then you play it, and so on. And play it. And if you're not a part of Real Guitar Success, you could probably make your own. Just put on some kind of recording device and play very slowly. 1, 2, start simple, leave a pause, and then say, now play. And the idea is to go and listen, go back and listen to it and play by listening, not by looking. I use videos, but I'm hoping the student will, at first, use it only as a crutch and then get away from it and just listen. Play it. Okay. By the way, I got the idea originally from watching this Yamaha course for little kids. They do, I might need this guitar. They do that singing, and the kids, it's amazing what they can do after 12 months of doing that. Next. Question. How to find out the key of a song by ear? So I mentioned this earlier. I'm going to just do a quick, brief one. What I do is I listen to the song, and I'm trying to find the note that resonates with that song and the bass of my guitar. So usually I'll find 2 notes, and I'll play it back and forth. So here I'm playing this. Well, I'm not playing that. I'm listening to a song. That's what it sounds like. And so there, I can tell that sounds like home. Sometimes the 5th song kind of sounds like home too, so I'll find 2 notes. The 5th of the song, there. And then I'll narrow it down to the one that sounds the best. Then I'll play a scale and see if it's major or minor. Major scale? No, that was a major one. Yeah, sounds better if it's major. And then I'll say that's the key of the song. I do have a lesson on that, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. Obviously more detailed than I just gave in a couple of minutes. Question. I have an issue practicing techniques than actually learning new songs. I believe I do that because the songs are hard, I think. It says had, but I think it means hard. Thoughts on approaching this? If you could explain that more, CD Ninja, I don't really understand the question. In general, it's good to practice exercises and pick songs that are easy enough that you can get them. If the songs are too hard, they're probably not the right song for you at this time. I mean, that's one of the advantages of having either a program or a teacher, is they can kind of, unfortunately, I've had a lot of teachers that just tried to teach you whatever you want to learn, which is not really being a good teacher. They're not really helping you pick the order. But in general, you want to go progressive. Don't try to jump up, because what happens is it's not just it's too hard. You end up compensating technique-wise to play a song that's too hard, and you get bad technique. You tense up, you get a habit of tensing. It's harder to undo than to keep from happening in the beginning. Next. I appreciate those who are giving other people encouragement. That's really nice. I see several. I appreciate that. Hello, Thomas. I'm playing notes instead of making music. Yeah, I can relate to that. How about some hints on loosening up and making what I play sound more like music? Oh, that's a big one, huh? The first thing that comes to mind is is to listen to music more often and then see where you can find things that you can play that sound more like the music that you like and listen to. I get inspiration by listening to songs, and I don't try and copy them, but I just draw from my memory in my head of things that I've heard. I'm not sure what you mean by making more music. Do you want to play more songs or make up your own music? I enjoy making up my own music, so I'll take a recording device and just play some chords, and then I'll make up stuff to go with it. It sounds good to me. Fortunately, over time, some of those have turned into songs that I could record and perform live and sell CDs, but you don't have to do that. It's just for your own pleasure. It's R. Campbell. If you want to elaborate or ask a little more about that, maybe I could be more help. So I assume when you say playing notes, you're just reading the notes. So maybe a little more ear training might help, because you do want to get to where you can hear and translate into the guitar as well. And for you, if you are a member, I believe, you want to start with the buy, copy, play sessions, simplest ones. Question: when do you use folk C or C add 9? Okay, I know what Bauer's asking. Folk C is this, and C add 9 is this. One version of it. Darn, that microphone's right in the way. Let's try that. There. Better? C, folk C, and C add 9. So they're slightly different sounds. I often teach beginners the C add 9 first, and I do it with just 3 fingers, or like this, because it's really easy to switch to G. And it sounds good. It's kind of hip modern. It mostly, if you're a musician and you're trying to decide which of those two to use, and I do use both in my playing, it depends on the style of music. If I'm playing a folk song or country song that sounds traditional, this sounds too hip. So, I don't want a jazzy chord if I'm playing something that is not jazzy. I'll play... That doesn't, that style doesn't sound right with... Where is it? There it is. It's just different now. It's a different style. I don't know what to call it, but it's not that kind of country folk style. And the best way to do that is to listen to music and try to discern what is being used in that song. If you like straight out folk, traditional country, you're probably going to use more of that folk style C. But if you listen to pop music, this is by far the most common C. Good question. Next question. My eyes aren't very good anymore. I know the chords. If I'm reading music, can you hear the song in your head? This is Dan, and he's kind of elaborating on the question about playing by notes or hearing the song. That is something a skill you develop. And you develop it by playing guitar and practicing, but you can accelerate it by doing by copy playing, ear training, things like that. Ear training on chords. I have exercises for play a chord and have you hear the chord and try to play it. You can look at the video and see what I'm doing, but the idea is to keep weaning your way from the video and do it by ear. Yes, I can a lot of times hear the music when I look at it. And I know a lot of professional musicians can. But it took many years to get there, many, many years. It's not something that if you can't do, you should feel bad about, because it's not a skill that people are born with, usually. There's a few exceptional gifted people. And it is something that takes a long time of practice. I'm not sure it's a good goal. It might be a good byproduct of doing enough practicing. And Dan said, yes, you did answer my question. I know every song I want to learn, but you can read the music and chord sheet. hard to always hear the song in my head. Oh, Dan, this gives me a little insight that I could, a tip that I can pass on to you and everyone else. When I'm going to learn a song, I get the music first. And depending on what's available, I might just get the chords and the lyrics. That might be all I need if it's a simple, strumming song. But I might even get the sheet music, which has notes, if there's some parts I want to know about. Then I go and listen to the song and listen and listen. I don't just listen once usually, I listen many times. I'm looking at the sheet music and getting the sound in my head based on what I see. If it's just chord changes, there might be some strumming and stuff going on, but I can see where they're changing the chords. Then I'll go and play it on the sheet music, and then I'll go back and listen again and see how close I got, and go back and forth until I'm happy with what I got. I don't always have to play it exactly like I hear it recorded. And I use YouTube usually. I can find every song on YouTube very easily. I don't have to go download it somewhere. I just go on YouTube. Try it. Get the sheet music and find the song and listen to it before you even start. And then try to go back and forth between the two. Question, nice looking Strat behind you. Yes, that's my newest guitar, and I like it. I was brought up with a Strat when I was a teenager. I had an American, beautiful, being a young, dumb, naive, I sold it, 3 years into it, thinking, not realizing how much they would cost one day. What can I say? So I finally got basically a recreation of that Strat that I had when I was 17. Question, how long does someone develop a decent ear in spotting intervals to copy melodies in the guitar? Well, it depends on your natural ability and how much you practice. Practicing being the bigger fluctuation. You can't do anything about natural abilities, so just practice more. I spent 2 years in college, a lot of that time working on my ear. And I would say, I'm still working on it. It's never there, but I'd say that was probably 2 years of consistent worked for me. Some people who are gifted, I have a teacher who was born with, what do you call it? Perfect pitch. And you can play something on the piano and she's not even looking. She can go back and play it. I think she could always do that. Or, as soon as she could play when she was a little kid, she could figure out what the notes were just by listening. So there's a big range there. And I know some people who have practiced for years. Generally, I find they don't practice consistently. And that's a big thing. Practicing consistently, a little at a time, every day. Next question. Okay, it looks like I've run out of questions on the chat. Let me just make sure one didn't pop up. Greetings from Scotland. Hey. I'm going to go to the top and see if I missed a question. If you think of a question in the next couple of minutes, throw it in there, and I'll take one more look at the bottom. I wanted to mention, too, this is going back to Paul, who's 78. One of the things that you can do, and that I find a lot of people take for granted, is really pay attention to how consistent you are, doing it every day, even for a little bit of time. And if you can only practice maybe 5-10 minutes, try to do twice a day, do in the morning and night. Works much better, especially when your fingers get older, than trying to do a bunch all at one time, getting sore, and then it's hard to play for the next 2 or 3 days. A little bit at a time, and be very consistent. Just keep coming back. Think of that, the ocean as the waves keep crashing on the rocks, how it looks like the water could never penetrate those rocks. But over years, by consistent bashing against the rocks, you'll see them carving out holes. Okay, back to the top. I don't see any questions I missed, at least not the word question. I'll check one more time at the bottom, and we'll close up for today. Okay, looks like I've answered all the questions for today. Thank you so much for being here with me. I really appreciate it. And it's so nice to be a part of a community of people learning to express themselves through music. I'll be back the first Thursday of next month with this question and answer. Please feel free to submit your questions ahead of time, or if you'd like, you can always ask the questions live on the chat. I will, for those of my Real Guitar Success members, I'll wait a week and then I'll run the drawing for the month of February. It's a short month, so I know some of you need a few days to catch up. But go ahead, get in there and complete the practice sessions, and we'll do that drawing. Thanks again. I look forward to seeing you all next month. Bye.